When Justin Wade walked into that conference room wearing designer Italian loafers and a watch that cost more than my monthly rent, I knew exactly what kind of conversation this would be. He didn't shake my hand. Didn't even look at me directly. Just glanced at the nameplate in front of my chair like I was office equipment he needed to inventory before the quarterly review. My name is Isabella Rhodes. I'm 32 years old and I live in a modest 2-bedroom apartment in Louisville, Kentucky. For the past 4 years, I've run an independent freight coordination consultancy. I don't have a flashy website. I don't post success stories on LinkedIn. My clients find me through word of mouth, usually when their distribution networks are imploding and someone's job is on the line. That's exactly how I landed the contract with Trident Regional Transport 3.5 years ago. Mason Reed, the previous operations chief, called me in after their third failed state compliance audit in 18 months. Delivery trucks were showing up at warehouses 6 hours late. Loading docks were gridlocked. Traffic signals weren't synced with freight schedules. Routes were overlapping. Cargo was getting flagged as lost when it was actually sitting in a backup queue 3 miles from the delivery point. I built the entire routing framework from the ground up. Every algorithm that determined truck sequencing. Every signal timing protocol that managed traffic flow through the industrial corridor. Every dock assignment window that prevented bottlenecks. Every GPS integration that tracked real-time vehicle positioning. Hardware installation. Logic architecture. System integration. All of it mine. They didn't purchase the system outright. They leased access to it. The contract spelled it out in clear, unambiguous language. Mason understood what he was signing. More importantly, he understood what he was getting. The results were immediate and undeniable. 0 missed delivery windows. No dock congestion. No trucks fighting over the same unloading bay. State auditors came through twice after implementation and found nothing to flag. Mason would send me thank you emails with actual substance in them, not just corporate politeness. Then Mason retired 6 months ago. Justin Wade arrived 2 weeks later with his MBA from somewhere prestigious and his leather portfolio that probably cost what I made in a week. The kind of person who uses terms like strategic realignment in casual emails. His first message to me wasn't a greeting or a question about system performance. It was a thinly veiled complaint about recurring vendor expenditure optimization. My invoice hadn't changed since the day Mason signed the contract. It was the exact amount we'd agreed upon, delivered on the exact schedule we'd established. I responded with a polite reminder of the contract scope. He replied with vague corporate language about evaluating third-party dependencies. 3 days later, Justin requested a complete copy of the software package for internal assessment purposes. That's when I understood he had no idea what he was dealing with. I didn't argue with him. Didn't explain the basics of intellectual property licensing. Just replied with a single sentence, happy to provide everything included under your lease agreement. Then I started preparing the tools I'd need. Let him believe I was nervous. I'd dealt with his type before. I already knew how this would end. The next morning another email arrived. Subject line, contract clarification request. Justin asked whether the operational logic framework was proprietary to the company. That was his exact phrasing. Operational logic framework. Like he'd skimmed a tech glossary 10 minutes before typing. I responded with a screenshot of the contract clause. Bold text, impossible to misinterpret. All system logic, design architecture and source code remains the sole property of Isabella Rhodes. Licensed for operational use only. No resale. No replication. No derivative works. 90 minutes later he sent another message. We will be transitioning to internal infrastructure solutions effective immediately. That was it. No courtesy. No warning. No acknowledgement of what the system actually did. Just corporate speak for we're cutting you loose. 2 days after that, a calendar invite appeared in my inbox. Title, Service Transition Discussion. No agenda attached. No context provided. I joined the video call 3 minutes early. Camera on. Navy blazer over a white shirt. Hair pulled back in a clean ponytail. I don't do messy presentations. Justin logged in 90 seconds late with that self-satisfied expression people wear when they think they've just solved a problem nobody else could figure out. A woman from procurement joined next. Ava something. Then a younger guy I'd never seen before, probably an analyst. Mason, predictably, was nowhere on the call. Justin started talking like we were discussing printer toner. Isabel, appreciate you joining. We've made the decision to terminate the current service arrangement and bring infrastructure management in-house. Thanks for all your work up to this point. Just like that. Like he was canceling a magazine subscription. I kept my face neutral. You're ending the lease? Correct, Justin said, leaning back in his chair like he expected applause. We'll need a full handover of all code, system diagrams, and back-end credentials so we can maintain operations without interruption. Ava nodded like this was already settled. The analyst typed something into his notes. I didn't move. You're not licensed to access the core system. You leased operational use. You never purchased ownership. Justin gave a small laugh, the kind people use when they think you're being difficult for no reason. We paid for it, Isabella. That makes it ours. That's standard business practice. I leaned slightly closer to the camera. You paid for access to a functioning system. You never bought the infrastructure itself. That distinction is outlined on page 4 of the contract. He glanced away from the camera, probably checking another monitor. We'll handle operations internally going forward. Just send over the files you have so we can transition smoothly. I'll send everything you're legally entitled to, I said. Nothing more. Silence stretched across the call. Nobody moved. Justin cleared his throat. That'll be fine. He tried to end the call quickly, fumbling with his mouse. I didn't leave immediately. Just sat there watching him click around like he was afraid I might say something else that would complicate his neat little plan. I didn't. I just waited until the screen went black. My jaw was tight when the call ended. Not from panic. Not even from anger. Just from the sheer predictability of it all. I'd seen plenty of people like Justin treat custom software like it was a commodity they could own if they paid enough money and filled out enough spreadsheets. But this wasn't inventory. This was a living, integrated system. Real-time data feeds. Traffic synchronization. GPS hooks. Embedded decision logic that couldn't be replicated with a few screenshots and an eager intern. I stood up, pulled my external hard drive from the shelf and connected it to my workstation. The core system was distributed across multiple builds and contained over 90,000 lines of code. I didn't need to sabotage anything. I just needed to give them exactly what they'd asked for in exactly the way they'd requested it. That meant polished visual materials. Clean diagrams. Interface mockups with no functional engine underneath. A pretty shell. Useless without the infrastructure they'd never paid to own. Let them try to figure it out on their own. Justin wanted to play ownership games. Fine. He was about to learn the difference between owning a dashboard and owning the machinery that makes it work. I sat back down at my desk, opened a new folder and gave it the kind of professional name Justin would expect to see. Trident Route Control Interface Package.zip. Then I started building his little gift. By the time I finished compressing the file, it looked polished and professional. The kind of deliverable that would make someone think they'd received exactly what they needed. Inside the archive, a slick UI demonstration with animated traffic flow visualizations. Clickable buttons. Professional-looking sidebars. Dashboard overlays that displayed route data in clean, organized layouts. All of it disconnected. No source code. No hooks to the backend servers. No triggers that actually controlled anything. Just a flashy simulation. The diagrams were technically accurate. Street maps showing the industrial corridor. Dock layouts with proper dimensions. Signal junction locations. But I'd stripped out every piece of timing data. Removed node identification codes. Disabled network ports. Left connection fields completely blank. Not a single functional link to the live system. I added one line to the email. Visual materials and system documentation provided per lease termination request. No operational data included. No pleasantries. No smiley faces. Just exactly what they were entitled to receive. I hit send. Watched the email disappear into the void. Didn't wait for a response. Then I grabbed my jacket and keys and walked out the door like it was any other Tuesday afternoon. There's a coffee shop 4 blocks from my apartment. Dark wood tables, exposed brick walls, and baristas who know my order without asking. I settled into a corner booth and ordered my usual. Black coffee, no sugar, no cream. The barista nodded and walked away. She'd served me dozens of times. Never asked questions. I pulled out my laptop, logged into the administrative console, my console, and brought up the relay dashboard. All nodes showed green. Camera feeds updating in real time. Schedules flowing smoothly through the system. Everything functioning exactly as it had for the past 3.5 years. Then I toggled the first switch. Suspend node synchronization. The entire map froze. Live data feeds dropped to 0. Signal updates stopped. Truck logs froze mid-route. The system didn't crash or throw error messages. It just stopped communicating. I watched the camera feeds lock on their current frames. Trucks sitting at intersections. Traffic lights frozen mid-cycle. Dock bays holding their last recorded status. No alarms. No warnings. Nothing to indicate something had gone wrong. That's how I designed it. Clean cutoff if the relay was ever disabled. No chaos. No explosions. Just silence. The barista returned and set the mug down in front of me. I nodded once. She left without a word. I leaned back against the booth and took a slow sip. Bitter. Strong. Perfect. They wanted to operate my system without me. They could certainly try. But right now they were flying completely blind. Every truck on the network still believed it was running on schedule. Every dock manager still thought their loading windows were accurate. And Justin probably had that demo file open right now, clicking through pretty screens thinking everything looked fine. I closed my laptop. Left a generous tip on the table. Walked out with half the coffee still in the mug. Let the silence build. They'd figure it out soon enough. Back at my apartment, I set my laptop on the kitchen counter and opened the lid. No rush. No stress. Just routine. The admin dashboard loaded within seconds. Real-time map of the Trident Logistics Corridor. Traffic grid overlay showing every major intersection. Dock schedules stacked neatly along the sidebar. Every component frozen in time. First 5 minutes, nothing appeared unusual. The system looked stable to anyone who didn't know what to watch for. Then I saw it. Signal sync mismatch at node 4B. Eastern entrance off the bypass route. Should have adjusted for mid-morning congestion patterns. Didn't. Light stayed green 40 seconds too long. Created a ripple delay along the feeder route. Nothing flagged in their monitoring systems. Nothing to warn them. 5 minutes later, node 7D failed to rotate priority for dockbound traffic. That held up the delivery sequence for 3 trucks, which knocked timing out of alignment at the Western Warehouse complex. Dispatch schedules still showed green across the board. But nothing matched reality anymore. I took another sip of coffee and pulled up the live camera feeds. 1 truck idling in lane 3. 1 dock sitting completely empty. Another dock backed up with a trailer sitting motionless, not unloading, not moving forward. The synchronization pulses were dead. Nobody inside those warehouses realized it yet. Dispatchers were still trusting their monitors. Drivers were still following routes like everything was functioning normally. But underneath the surface, the system wasn't sending or receiving any data. 15 minutes in, 6 dock hubs showed misalignment. 20 minutes in, queue timers started falling behind schedule. 3 delivery windows marked as missed. 4 marked incomplete by default configuration. Automated tags failed to register. I leaned forward slightly, watching it collapse in slow motion. This wasn't an explosion. This was a controlled landslide. By minute 30, the damage became obvious. Traffic signals went fully out of sync. Trucks turning against stale green lights. Gridlock forming at feeder junctions. Docks either sitting completely empty or so jammed they couldn't process incoming deliveries fast enough. Then the emails started arriving. First one. Subject line: quick question sync issue. Hi Isabella, getting a slight delay on dock queue updates. Can you take a look when you have a moment? I didn't respond. Second one. Subject line: system not responding. Receiving an error when trying to pull today's route data. Is anyone else seeing this? I scrolled past it. 3 more messages appeared. Then 6. Then 10. Polite at first. Casual. Slightly confused. By minute 45, the panic started bleeding through. Subject line: urgent delivery conflict. Multiple dock schedules are showing overlaps. We have 4 trucks idling with no unload pathway. Need guidance immediately. Nope. I closed the preview pane and let them pile up. Another one hit my inbox. Lost route data for morning delivery loop. All feeds dead. Need immediate reset instructions. They couldn't reset it. There was no reset function. I'd never built one for them. I opened the relay logs. Connection requests were hammering the demo shell Justin's team was trying to use as the live system. Nothing responded. Every request bounced back empty. I took another slow sip of coffee. No cream. No sugar. Just bitter and strong like this entire situation. That's when my phone started vibrating. Unknown numbers. Louisville area codes. Then another. Then one from a logistics company I recognized from previous projects. I didn't answer any of them. Let them ring out. Let the silence grow heavier. By the time I refreshed my inbox again, the tone had shifted dramatically. All caps subject lines. Bold text. Red priority flags. Immediate response required. Full data dropout critical. Dock operations halted. No access to live traffic patterns. I didn't touch a single message. They wanted ownership. They thought they could extract me from the system and coast on some polished diagrams and a pretty interface. They were about to discover what happens when the foundation disappears. And I was going to watch the entire collapse happen quietly from my kitchen. I kept my attention on the dashboard and left my phone face down on the counter like it was something I couldn't be bothered to deal with. It didn't stay quiet for long. The first call came from an unknown Louisville number. I let it ring through to voicemail. Then another call. Then 3 more in rapid succession. My phone started doing that continuous vibration where it barely stopped buzzing before starting again. I flipped it over and watched the missed call count climb. Some showed caller names. Most didn't. A few were from a city transportation contact I'd worked with during the last compliance audit. Several came from logistics firms that operated trucks through the corridor. People who didn't know Justin existed. People who just needed the routes and signals to function properly. I ignored every single one. My inbox lit up again. New subject lines getting uglier by the minute. Route collision risk. Trucks backing up on entry lanes. Dock window data completely stale. I clicked into the event feed and watched the system's ghost continue moving forward. Trucks weren't literally colliding. Not yet. But the conditions were forming rapidly. Drivers were making navigation decisions without accurate timing data. Dispatchers were guessing. The entire operation was deteriorating into tribal knowledge and shouted instructions. Then Justin called. His name appeared on my screen because he'd used the same work number to send the calendar invite for the termination meeting. I stared at it for 3 seconds, then declined the call. He called again immediately. Declined again. Third call. Declined. I didn't feel smug about it. I felt focused. There's a meaningful difference. This wasn't revenge. This was me watching someone learn a fundamental lesson. You don't remove the pilot from the cockpit mid-flight and act shocked when the aircraft starts losing altitude. My phone buzzed with a text message. Justin Wade, hey, we're experiencing some technical issues. Can we get on a quick call? A quick call. Like I was technical support for his catastrophic decision-making. I didn't respond. Not yet. I opened my relay logs and examined the connection attempts in detail. That's when I saw it with perfect clarity. They were trying to boot the demo shell like it was the actual control system. They didn't even understand the fundamental difference between an interface and infrastructure. Request after request slammed into nothing. Connection failed. Endpoint unavailable. No node handshake. Camera token invalid. Hundreds of failed connection attempts flooding in, piling up so fast the error counter couldn't refresh properly. They were trying to drive a car using only a photograph of the steering wheel. I pulled up a dock summary view. The situation had deteriorated significantly. One hub showed 5 inbound trucks assigned to the same loading bay. Another facility had 3 bays sitting completely empty while 4 trucks idled outside because the gate assignment logic wasn't updating. Shipment status tags started automatically flipping to late because the data pipeline wasn't confirming check-ins. That's when the real damage started accumulating. Not just operational inconvenience. Data corruption. Once records fell out of proper sequence, it wasn't just an inconvenience anymore. It became a compliance nightmare. Missing timestamps. Incorrect chain of custody events. The kind of discrepancies auditors built entire investigations around. I watched a batch of deliveries get flagged as no-show Even though the camera feeds clearly showed the truck sitting right there in the queue, stuck behind a broken signal pattern. I exhaled slowly through my nose, stood up and retrieved a folder from my desk drawer. I drafted the document 4 months ago because I wasn't naive about how these situations played out. Any system that mattered needed an emergency reactivation offer ready to deploy. People only respected pricing structure when their operations were actively hemorrhaging. I opened the PDF template, updated the date field and entered the terms without hesitation. Emergency reactivation offer. Rate, triple standard monthly fee prepaid in full. Payment, wire transfer only, no installments. Access window, 72 hours from payment confirmation. Terms, no ownership transfer. No IP handoff. No internal replication permitted. Reactivation begins after funds clear. Clean. Blunt. No room for negotiation phrases like, let's discuss options. I attached the document to an email addressed to Justin, procurement, and a general legal contact I had from the original contract signing. Subject line, emergency reactivation offer Trident route relay system. Then I hit send. I didn't call anyone. Didn't add explanatory notes. The PDF communicated everything that needed to be said. My phone rang again. Different number this time. I ignored it. Another call. Ignored. Then a voicemail notification appeared from a blocked caller ID. I let it sit there. A minute later, the transcription arrived. Hello, this is legal counsel for Trident Regional. We received your email. We would like to discuss available options. Discuss options. Of course they wanted to discuss. I didn't respond. I returned to the dashboard and watched the chaos spread like spilled oil across pavement. Trucks stacked up at the eastern entrance. A signal loop stayed out of phase long enough to create a rolling backup affecting 3 major routes. Dock staff kept working trying to force the schedule forward manually, but the data was lying to them now. Drivers were receiving incorrect delivery windows. Dispatchers were making manual adjustments that didn't sync anywhere. And every manual correction created a new mismatch somewhere else in the chain. Shipments started getting marked as missing because the system couldn't confirm vehicle movement. Late flags triggered automatically across dozens of deliveries. Someone somewhere was probably already drafting an internal incident report filled with vague phrases like, unexpected service disruption. I didn't care what corporate language they used to describe it. I watched Justin's team drown in a problem they'd created deliberately, and I kept my hands completely off the keyboard. When my phone buzzed again, I didn't even glance down. I refreshed the log feed and waited for the moment when denial finally transformed into surrender. At 3:47 p.m. the calendar invite arrived. Subject, Emergency Systems Conference Call 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. No agenda attached. Just a list of names I recognized and several I didn't. I joined the call at 3:58. Camera on. No background blur. No filters. Just me at my kitchen table wearing a gray sweater and minimal makeup. The screen populated with executives in business attire. CO joined first. Henry something. Tie loosened. Forehead visibly perspiring. Then legal counsel. 2 of them. One woman in her mid-40s with sharp, calculating eyes. One younger attorney already typing notes. Next came the operations director. Silver hair, polo shirt, expression that suggested he hadn't slept in 24 hours. Justin was already there when I connected. Bottom right corner of the screen. Camera on but positioned small in the frame. Silent. Mouth shut for once. Nobody said hello. Henry cleared his throat. Isabella, thank you for joining us on extremely short notice. We're aware of the current operational disruptions. Obviously, this is a high-priority situation, and we're hoping to reach a fast, reasonable resolution. I nodded once. Let him continue talking. Our understanding is there may have been some miscommunication during the service transition process. We're not here to debate what happened previously. We're focused on solutions moving forward. I cut in. There was no miscommunication. You canceled the contract. If you want service restored, pay the stated cost. He blinked like he wasn't accustomed to being interrupted by vendors. The legal woman leaned toward her camera. Isabella, we've reviewed your PDF. We're hoping we can revisit some of the stated terms. No. Some of the restrictions you've outlined, such as the 72-hour limitation and the prepayment clause. No. I didn't raise my voice. Didn't need to. Henry stepped back in. Look, nobody's denying the system was valuable, but we don't believe the current situation justifies emergency pricing at that scale. The operations director finally spoke. Voice flat and exhausted. We've lost 2 complete windows of route data. That's hundreds of delivery records marked incomplete. No ETA tracking. No proper entry logs. At this point, we're dispatching manually and rerouting blind. He glanced off screen. 3 fulfillment partners have already called threatening to pull their contracts if we don't stabilize by tomorrow morning. The room went silent. I said calmly, you attempted to run a simulation file as if it were live infrastructure. You had no understanding of what you were doing. This isn't a document template. This is critical infrastructure. You severed the connection. Now you pay to restore it. Justin still hadn't said a word. Henry looked down at something off camera. Let's step into a breakout room for 2 minutes. Isabella will be right back. They clicked out. Justin's video square remained. Still silent. I stared directly into the camera. He looked like he wanted to say something. Didn't. I muted my microphone, took a slow sip of coffee, then set the mug down deliberately. Exactly 4 minutes later, the group returned to the main call. Henry adjusted his microphone. All right, we're proceeding with payment as outlined. Legal is initiating the wire transfer now. Should complete within 20 minutes. I didn't smile. Didn't thank them. Let me know when it clears. 12 minutes later, an email notification appeared. Wire transfer confirmation urgent. No message body. Just the receipt attachment. I opened the administrative console and re-enabled relay synchronization. Traffic nodes lit back up one by one. Data feeds reconnected. Dock windows updated in real time. System heartbeats came back online. The map came back to life like a rebooted brain. Trucks started shifting back into proper alignment. Camera frames began advancing forward. Signal patterns caught up to current traffic conditions. Dock routing cleared itself within 7 minutes. Inboxes would start filling with automated confirmations. Schedules would autocorrect. A few deliveries were already marked unrecoverable, but the majority would slide back into normal flow like nothing had happened. I didn't say anything to them. Just kept the video call window open while the system performed its work. Then I finished the last of my coffee. Henry finally spoke. We appreciate your rapid response to this situation. I said evenly, I didn't do this rapidly. I did this according to the rules you signed. The legal woman looked like she wanted to respond. Didn't. The operations director nodded slowly. They understood the message. I left the call without another word. They got their system back. And I got what I wanted. Not just the money. The reminder that this infrastructure runs because I built it to run. And it only runs when I authorize it. The next morning I woke at 7, made fresh coffee and opened my laptop. Everything ran perfectly. Traffic nodes synchronizing like clockwork. Camera feeds updating precisely on schedule. Dock routing back to full alignment. 0 errors. Clean logs. No frantic emails. No desperate phone calls. They'd learned to stay quiet and stay out of my way. At 8:32 a.m., a LinkedIn message appeared. Justin Wade, rough couple of days. Want to connect over virtual coffee sometime? I didn't open it. Didn't mark it as read. Just left it sitting there like a joke I'd already heard. By early afternoon, a new email arrived. Different sender. New tone. Subject. Strategic Partnership Opportunity Long-Term Proposal. It came from a VP of Corporate Strategy. Not someone I'd dealt with before. Younger executive. Corporate polished. Probably hired to clean up Justin's disaster without explicitly saying so. The offer. 5-year exclusive retainer. Full access to the live system. Priority integration into future expansion projects. Substantial compensation. The number was genuinely impressive. More than I'd ever made on a single contract. But they still didn't understand the fundamental issue. Access didn't mean control. And throwing money at me didn't erase the insult. I didn't reply immediately. I opened a blank document. No template. No recycled contract language. I rewrote the entire agreement from scratch. Full prepayment required. Wire transfer before system activation. 90-day termination clause. No exceptions. All infrastructure remains under exclusive license. Zero IP handoff. No administrative access granted. No code replication permitted. All operational control stays with Isabella Rhodes. Non-negotiable. There was no friendly language in the document. No sales pitch. Just terms. At the bottom I added one line in bold text. Agreement effective only upon full acceptance. No revisions. I attached the document to a reply email with no subject line and no message body. Sent it directly to the VP and copied legal counsel. Didn't copy Justin. He was out of the loop now. Then I closed my laptop and went for a walk around the neighborhood. No pacing. No second guessing. I wasn't sitting around waiting to see if they'd push back. They wouldn't. They couldn't. At 5:47 p.m., the signed contract arrived in my inbox. PDF attachment. No edits. No questions. Just a timestamp and digital signatures from their end. I opened the document and scrolled through it line by line, checking for any clever modifications. Nothing changed. Every clause exactly as I'd written it. That told me everything I needed to know. They weren't trying to collaborate anymore. They were doing what they should have done from the beginning. Stay in their lane and pay for the right to use my infrastructure. No sweet talk. No video calls. No coffee chats. They got the message. And I had the signed contract to prove it. 18 hours after they signed the new agreement, another email arrived. Subject: Infrastructure Training Session Thursday 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. From Brian Kelly. Title: Director of Logistics Systems. He was new to the organization. I'd heard his name mentioned once during the reactivation call. Referenced briefly by the operations director. His message was direct. Isabella, I want you to present to our full logistics and operations teams about system dependencies. We need everyone to understand what's actually running under the hood. Not just leadership. No politics. Just facts. Let me know if you're available Thursday. I replied with 5 words. Send me the meeting link. Thursday morning, I logged in several minutes early. The call was already filling with participants. Names appeared from procurement, routing, dispatch, IT infrastructure, and several warehouse management groups. 38 people total. Brian opened the meeting. Dark blue shirt. Glasses. Serious expression. No unnecessary pleasantries. Thanks for joining, everyone. As most of you know by now, the past week exposed some significant gaps in our understanding of system architecture. I've asked Isabella Rhodes, the actual architect, to walk us through what we're using, what we don't own, and what we need to stop assuming. Isabella, you have the floor. I shared my screen. First slide was plain white background with one sentence in bold black text. Your system is a rental. Nobody spoke. I advanced to the next slide. Simple diagram. Boxes and arrows. What they used on the left side. What I owned on the right side. 90% of the functionality sat under my column. I kept my voice flat and clear. No condescension. Just facts. You don't own this infrastructure. You don't own the routing logic, the synchronization engines, the scheduling core, or the signal management layer. What you operate is a licensed interface. What I operate is the engine. I clicked to the third slide. A table labeled Control Points. You can request route exports. You can view scheduling dashboards. You can adjust dock windows. What you cannot do is modify live synchronization behavior, override signal cascades, or access backend decision rules. All of that sits behind my firewall. Still nobody pushed back. They just listened. Slide 4. Disruption Impact Matrix. I walked them through how the system had failed gracefully rather than catastrophically. Why their dashboards didn't scream errors. Because I'd built the system to go silent rather than explode. They'd mistaken silence for functionality. About 22 minutes in, someone unmuted. Young voice. Slightly nervous. Do we have a backup of the core infrastructure, in case something happens on your end? I didn't hesitate. No. You have a display interface. A dashboard isn't a server. What you see is a mirror of my system, not a duplicate. He muted quickly. Nobody followed up with additional questions. I clicked to the final slide. Dependency isn't weakness. Confusion is. Then I closed the presentation and let the silence settle naturally. Brian came back on camera. All right. I think that communicates everything clearly. I appreciate the directness, Isabella. They needed to hear it without sugarcoating. Good, I said. Any final questions? He asked the group. Nobody unmuted. No raised hands. Not even a side chat comment visible. He nodded, gave a brief thank you and ended the call. I closed my laptop and leaned back in my chair. No debate. No passive-aggressive follow-up messages. No one trying to find loopholes around the truth. They understood it now. Finally. 4 weeks passed. Not a single operational issue. No synchronization errors. No routing confusion. No dock chaos. The system just ran flawlessly the way it always had when I was the one running it. Payment arrived on time. Full wire transfer. No reminder emails needed. No friendly nudges. No delays. I checked the deposit, marked it in my financial tracker, and didn't need to follow up once. I kept the monitoring dashboard open out of habit more than necessity. Every node pulsed steady green. Every camera rolled on schedule. Every route sync logged with timestamps that matched reality perfectly. It was finally quiet. Then the messages started arriving. Not from Trident. From outside. One from a former client in Indianapolis. Hey Isabella. Heard about Louisville. Are you taking on new support contracts? Another from a contact in Texas I hadn't spoken to in over a year. Quick question. Are you offering system hosting now? Words getting around. A few came from companies I didn't recognize at all. Smaller operations. Different geographic zones. But every message carried the same tone. Cautious curiosity. Like they were testing the water temperature before committing. I didn't reply to any of them. Not yet. Instead, I opened a blank document on my second monitor and typed 4 words at the top. 2026 rate sheet standard. Then I got to work. Emergency response surcharge. Standard rate multiplied by 3. System access. Hard limited to read only unless explicitly stated otherwise. Payment structure. Prepaid full term. No installment plans. Contract termination. 90-day minimum notice required. Ownership. All systems remain licensed infrastructure. Backups hosted off-site. Not client accessible. Interface use. Non-transferable. No resale permitted. No sales language. No welcome banners. Just rules. Clear. Pulled. My. I formatted it precisely, printed 2 copies, signed the bottom of each, and filed one in my desk cabinet. That was my new standard. Not just pricing. Posture. I didn't need to chase clients. Didn't need marketing campaigns. My name was already circulating without me lifting a finger. The woman who shut down an entire regional logistics network like a light switch and walked away without breaking a sweat. Let them talk. I had what they wanted. Stability. Precision. Power. And I never let go of the one thing they all assumed they could buy. Control. 10 days later, the custom control panel arrived via courier. Solid black casing. Stainless steel knobs. Physical toggle switches lined across the top. All programmable. It was overbuilt deliberately. No touchscreen interface. No unnecessary features. Just clean industrial control. I wired it directly to my system's relay hub. Labeled each switch by